In 6th grade, I had this really tight friend group. Michaela, Laura, Nina, Roxy, and me. There were 5 of us. And every Friday we had this tradition of throwing big group sleepovers together, making banana bread, and watching a scary movie. And every weekend we would alternate houses. Some Fridays would be at my house, then Laura's house, Michaela's house, Nina's house. The only house we never slept over at was Roxy's house. And we never really asked why, because Roxy was pretty quiet and she just never invited us. And since someone else was always down to host, it was just never really an issue. But then it was the weekend of Roxy's birthday. And we were planning our regular Friday night sleepover, except we were trying to make it special because it was her birthday. So we were all talking about making a special banana bread with frosting, like a banana bread cake. And then Michaela, who was always pretty straight up and blunt, was like, well, Roxy, since it's your birthday party, we should really be doing it at your house. And Roxy got really red. She's like, I don't really know if I want to do it at mine. And Michaela's like, well, whenever it's one of our birthdays, we do it at our houses. So now it's your turn. And I felt really bad for Roxy because clearly she didn't want to have the sleepover at her house. But Michaela was really aggressive about it and ultimately pressured Roxy into agreeing to having the sleepover at her house, which ended up being a horrible idea. So it's Friday night, it's Roxy's birthday weekend, and we're all going to her house for the first time ever for our group sleepover. So we get there, and honestly, everything seemed really normal at first. Roxy's house was really nice, and honestly, I was confused why she never wanted us there before. So then we start making banana bread, and all of a sudden, Laura jumps and screams and runs to the other side of the kitchen. She's like, did you guys feel that? And we're all like, what are you talking about, Laura? She's like, I swear something just touched my lower back. And Laura's face turned really pale, like she was genuinely scared. And we spend the next hour convincing her that no one was there, no one touched her back. So then we start watching a movie, Disturbia. Shout out to Shia LaBeouf. And Nina goes to the bathroom. And when she comes back, she's like, Roxy, it looks like something upstairs is maybe leaking because there's this massive wet stain on your bathroom wall. And Roxy's like, oh, don't worry, that stain's always there. She's like, we actually can't figure out where it's coming from. We've had plumbers come and they can't figure it out either. There's no drain or pipe or anything that could be causing a leak at that part of the house anyway. And then Roxy says, but that's why we think our house is haunted. We all look at her kind of shocked and she's like, yeah, that's why I never invited you guys to sleep over because it can get kind of creepy. But honestly, at that point, I wasn't that creeped out until we went to bed because that's when stuff started getting weird. 5 years ago, my parents bought a farm in rural Tennessee. And the summer after they bought it, they told my brother and I that we had to work on the farm. And I was like, oh, but I want a summer internship in New York City. And they were like, oh, that's nice, but you're gonna be weed whacking in rural Tennessee. So in Tennessee, there are these snakes called copperheads. And I'm from the East Coast, and we don't have copperheads on the East Coast. So these snakes are really bad. And I know they're bad because people talk shit about them. People never want to say bad things about animals. Like even sharks. Like a shark could bite a woman's leg off, and everyone would be like, oh, that poor shark thought she was a seal. So it's kind of her fault, you know? It's kind of on her. And we stand with the shark. And actually the shark's name is Teddy. He's been followed by marine biologists since he was just a baby. But people definitely say bad things about these snakes in Tennessee, these copperheads, because they're ruthless. You know, with predatory animals, how people are like, if you don't bother it, it won't bother you. That's apparently not the case with these copperheads. I was talking to my neighbor one day, this guy Rick. He's a big pink man. I mean, he's a white man, but his face is bright pink. He goes, oh yeah, be vigilant because these snakes can kill you. If they see you, they will attack. So I had been in Tennessee for like a month and I hadn't seen one of these snakes yet. And this one day it was so hot and I was wearing khaki shorts that day and I had the worst ass crack sweat stain I have ever had. Look, if you ever googled swass, sweaty ass, that day my butt would have been the Wikipedia image for it. So I was so hot and I had to go for a swim, so I went to the creek alone. I'm driving there and I just had this bad feeling, like I knew something bad was gonna happen. So I go to the creek to cool off for what my mom would call a dippy-do. A dippy-do means going for a swim, for those of you who don't know. It's the middle of the day and I'm the only person at the creek when I arrive. So I'm just getting in the water, I'm like ankle deep, and another car pulls up. And before I even looked, I could tell from the sound of the muffler that I wasn't gonna love the person behind the wheel of that car. And sure enough, I turn around to look, and the vehicle has a big old Confederate flag sticker on the back. And the guy who gets out, he's not pink like my neighbor Rick. He's red, like a chili pepper that gives you horrible diarrhea. So I avoid eye contact, obviously. I don't want to engage with a man who has a Confederate flag sticker on the back of his truck. So then the man starts walking into the water, and at this point I'm already fully submerged halfway across the creek. And as he's getting in, I see something pop up in the water between us. A little dark head with tiny beady eyes. My first copperhead sighting. And this snake looked at me, and then he looked at him, and then he disappeared under the water again before I can even say anything. So I have a moment of panic because I have no idea where this snake is going. And it happened so fast, the next thing I hear is the red man screaming that he got bit by a copperhead. He ended up being okay, and I'm not saying that anyone deserves to get bit by a poisonous snake. But that snake is an ally.